Well, 2 weeks after that fight, I found out I was pregnant. And I was so scared to tell him. Children just don't change your life. They change your perspective. Then Dr. Jardine walks in and he's like, I need to talk to you. And he's like, can we go into this room? And I'm like, no. And he saw the look on my face. He's like, I'm sorry. I would go through everything all over again, knowing that Michael and Ava are on the other side. Having them is the greatest thing that I've ever done, that I've ever accomplished in my life.
Welcome to Let Me Tell You, a podcast where people share their experiences with heartache and trials in order to bring comfort, hope, inspiration to others. I'm really excited about my guest today. It's funny, we've met over social media. We have never met in person. She does not live far from me, but we've talked so much through Instagram, texting, Marco Polo. When you connect with people, you connect with people. And so it's kind of awesome. But in talking to her, we actually started talking about, we met, and I think you started following me for things I was posting for something else. But we ended up, as I got to know her, got to hear her situation. She's a single mom now of 3 adorable kids. And those 3 adorable kids all have disabilities. Now, as a mom, this is Tori, by the way. As a mom of 1 child with disabilities, I know how heavy that can be. So when I heard that it was 3, I still have moments where I'm like, that I can't wrap my head around that. But getting to know Tori, she's incredibly strong, capable. Those kids are lucky to have her in their corner. So let's get into this. Explain a little bit what it is that your kids have. She's told me multiple times. I have not remembered the term. So I'm going to let her explain it. Go for it.
It's okay. So like you said, my girls are completely blind. Well, my oldest is like 40% and then 40% where she can see and 60% where she can't. And the disease that they have is Leber's congenital amaurosis. It's LCA. And there's no real like cure for it. You can go through the Boston or Texas genetic pharmaceutical what's the phrase, like trials, and where they get injections into their eyes and or even possible like complete like eye transplants, but ultimately the body's going to reject it because it sees that as a as like a foreign body. Yep.
Wow. Okay. So this is a genetic thing
Mm-hmm.
that you obviously did not know before you had
Right.
your first child.
Correct.
So how old is your first child now? 8. Okay. So the ages of your kids, 8,
just turned 6, and then 4. His birthday is in February, so he'll be 5.
Okay. So after you had your first baby, what happened? When did you find out that she had this?
So when she was born, she just kind of looked at you and you could just feel her like looking into your soul. Like it was just very blank. It was very like, I mean, she was there, but there was, I mean, obviously something wrong. And me personally, I thought is because she was born 28 days early. She was like not fully like developed, but she didn't have to stay in the NICU at all. So I'm just like, it is what it is. And then all of our family came up because we were getting sealed in the Logan Temple. And my grandpa at the time, well, he still is, but my grandpa at the time was holding my daughter and he's like, Tori, something's wrong. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, I feel her looking at me, but I don't feel like she sees me. So like that triggered me a little bit because it's like, okay, I'm not crazy. And then her eyes have, they move around a lot and it's called nystagmus. I don't know. I'm not the greatest with that. Like to me, it's normal, So like her eyes would just move around a lot. Like it's gotten worse as she's gotten older, but one of her eyes would linger to one side, but like her eyes were just constantly moving. And so my grandpa was just like, Tori, something's not right. So I took her to the pediatrician and I'm like, hey, can you help me? And they're like, sure, we'll send you to it's not Phoenix Children, Primary Children's up in Utah, down in Salt Lake, to get further evaluated. So I'm like, okay. So we went down and she was about, let's see, she was born in May, probably like December-ish. So she was almost, let's see, May, like 7, 8 months old. And we met with Dr. Jardine, loved him, absolutely loved him. And he saw Marbury and he was noticing her eye movements. He's like, I think this is what it is. He's like, but I don't want to jump to conclusions. He's like, and I'm really hoping I'm wrong. And we're like, okay. And he's like, but I want to schedule a surgery surgery to further look into this. And it's like, okay, whatever. So come February, we had to schedule just because Utah at that time was supposed to have a huge snowstorm and he didn't want us driving from Logan down to Salt Lake and potentially happen, especially with Sardine Canyon, how crazy it gets. So we went down there and we waited. It was about a 2-hour surgery. We had to be there by 6 a.m. We got her all prepped and everything. And I was able to walk her to the OR doors and then I handed her over, and then the longest 2 hours of my life. And the nurses would come and check on us every once in a while. And one nurse, bless her heart, she was so, so sweet. And she's like, have you eaten at all? I'm like, no, and I'm fine. She's like, go for like 10 minutes. I'm like, I can't. And I'm bawling at this point because she was just like so sweet. But I knew where she was coming from of just like, get a mental break for a minute. And so my ex-husband and I, we did leave and we came back. And the nurse is like, hey, they're just wrapping up. Like Dr. Jardine will come and talk to you. Well, we're in the general area. And then there's a little booth to the side of like for private discussions. Then Dr. Jardine walks in and he's like, I need to talk to you. And he's like, can we go into this room? And I'm like, no. And he saw the look on my face. He's like, I'm sorry. So we went in there and he tells me, your daughter has LCA, which is Leber's congenital amaurosis. He's like, unless we do genetic testing, he's like, we have no idea whose side it comes from. He's like, it could come from, like, talking to me. He's like, it could come from your mom's side, and your parents and ancestors back have just married somebody normal without that common genetic disease. And all of you guys have been able to see. Same with his parents and his side of the family. So, like, we never did genetic testing because I didn't care. And so then he explained to us that from here on out, there's a 75% chance that every child we have could have this disease. Like it's a 50-50 chance of we would have a baby like Marbury, or you would have that 25% where that child is completely blind. Or you'll have that really, 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 really rare occurrence where you have a baby that's completely fine. And so I was sitting there trying to process everything and being like, okay. And I was asking questions. And Dr. Jardine, he's LDS. So he was helping us like maneuver of like, Heavenly Father trusted you. Like, this is what, like, whatever you did, whatever path you chose, like, Heavenly Father trusted you with this child. And so I was taking that, like, that was a comfort to me, while my ex-husband was just so distraught. He kept pacing back and forth. And so he's like, let us finish. She's trying to, he's like, by now that she should be out in the, yes, thank you, recovery. And, you can go see her. Well, I go in, I immediately crawl up onto that bed and I hug her. And the fact that she chose me to be her mom was just super overwhelming. And my ex-husband was just like, hey, we gotta go. And I'm like, what's the deal? She's still trying to come out of the anesthesia, and baby's high. Can I just tell you, it's the greatest. But
I can only imagine.
It was so good. And then, but the nurses were nice. They're like, hey, take as much time as you need. Like, you're here early enough. Like, our next one isn't for another hour before we'd bring in another patient. And like, okay. But since my ex-husband was so, we got to go, we got to go, we got to go, like, they gave her a little gift bag for being so good. And then we left. And the whole drive back up to Logan, he was just like, I don't know what to do. This is not how I wanted my life. And it's like, do you think this is how I wanted my life to be either? Like, I was hoping, and we kind of got into a fight, and like, we were just, I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, this just happened. I was like, it was rare happenstance of like, we got together and this happened. And then, he left on a work trip. She had her first birthday. He was nowhere around because my mom came to visit me because he was gone, and he didn't want to be anywhere near my mom. So he stayed on the work trip while my mom stayed with first birthday. And like, he was still having a hard time with all of it. And so then fast forward a year and a half, she just had her second birthday, and we had gotten into a fight. It was so bad. Like, you raise your voice at Marbury and she's instantly like becomes her golden child, and she's like, okay. And so like, Zach and I were fighting, and she comes up to me and starts hugging me. She's crying, and he points at Marbury and he's like, I don't want another one like that. And because I was asking for another baby, because like, Marbury was starting to the point where it's like perfect time frame to start having another baby. And he's like, I don't want to have another one like that. He's like, if we're going to have another one, he's like, we are going to go through IVF because I want to be able to choose the perfect baby. I want to be able to walk out and be like, hey, look, the grass is green, and be able to see it instead of taking the time to explain it, describe it, and like truly take the time to just slow down. He was not having it. Well, 2 weeks after that fight, I found out I was pregnant. And I was so scared to tell him. It took me 2 weeks to tell him I was pregnant because of the conversation we just had. And I was terrified that he would want me to get rid of the baby. And he was like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. And then in my brain, I'm like, pardon me, like, excuse me, what? And he's like, this is going to be great, yada, yada, yada. Well, then in the meantime, I didn't know he started drinking and chewing. I had no idea. So I told him I was pregnant, and then I was doing laundry, and I found beer bottle caps in his pants pocket. I'm like, what is this? And he's like, oh, it must have just bounced into my pocket. I'm like,
that's the best one I think I've ever heard.
I was like, what?
That's
and
awesome.
Like, I was leaning up against the truck. He's like, I was out at the farm because he was working out at a farm out in Smithfield. And he's like, I was leaning up against a truck talking to everybody. And he's like, and then it just must have bounced into my pocket. I'm like, so in my brain, I'm like trying to like
do the physics.
Yeah. And I'm just like, okay, if my hand goes into my pocket, there's sometimes where I have to like shove my hand in there, even like, especially for like women's jeans, like they only come up to like your first nipple, so you're just like, and so I'm like, okay, whatever. And so like, I blew it off, and then it started getting progressively worse, but he hid it. But the chew that he liked was the same as my dad's dad. And so that was like, so whenever I'd get a whiff, I'm like, oh my gosh, where is he? But I'm like, I'm in Utah, he's in Arizona. So like the two, it ain't mathin'. And so I confronted him about it, and he's like, yeah, he's like, I've had to, ever since I found out about Marbury, he's like, I've had to cope. I'm like, and you don't think I've needed to cope? And he's like, well, he's like, you're just so focused on the church. And this is when he was starting to become anti. And he was just like, you have the church. He's like, you have your faith. He's like, you have your support system. He's like, who do I have? I'm like, I've been trying to rely on you, but you keep pushing me away. He's like, well, that's not my problem. I'm like, okay. So, like I said, we found out I was pregnant, and then he went to Georgia for work because he was working with Vivint, the home security company. And I went out to Georgia and was with him for a while. Well, when I got there, he was out there for about a month or two by himself before I flew out. And when I got there, alcohol was like everywhere. And I'm like, okay. So dealing with that, trying to, and Marbury at this time, she's like, uh, little miss, proud, proud of herself, independent walking, where if she saw a cup, she just automatically thought it was mine and would drink from it. No, that was not the case for about 25% of the time. So I'm like hurrying up, trying to pick up cups because there's potential alcohol, mixed drinks. And then I had to fly back before I was, because you're not allowed to fly around like 6 months. So I was like telling him, I'm like, I gotta fly back. I can't do this. And he's like, who's there? Who's more important? I'm like, our child, but like, okay. And so I fly back and find out we're having a girl. And um and then Lily was born, and same thing. She was just kind of glossed over.
And I have to imagine when you had her, that was like the first thing you were looking at. Am I wrong?
Oh yeah. No, you're completely right. Like I was just
Looking for any signs.
mhm. And so I was like, she passed with flying colors as far as hearing and testing and everything. And then when um I was like, how's her vision? And the nurses kind of looked at me. They're like, she's a baby. We don't really test for that. I'm like, okay, that's fair. So when I held her and everything and I would talk to her, you could just see it. I'm like, okay. And so, and I knew right then and there that she was either like Marbury or she was worse. Well, as she grew up and started doing things, she would crawl, but she would also kind of like smack the ground, kind of like echolocation.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so she would, echolocation around, and she would be able to crawl without bumping into things. Or if she would get close, she would feel, and I would, you know, acknowledge and be like, yeah, you're good. It's just the wall, or there's the chair, whatever. And then later on, she would when she was sitting up and everything, she would throw a toy, but then get frustrated and just sit there. And I'm like, go ahead, go get it. And then she just wouldn't move. So it's like, so I'm starting to put two and two together that it's worse than what Marbury is.
See, and I want to talk about that for a second because like in our situation, it was our younger daughter that it has special needs. So we were able to compare it to something. We had something to compare it to. Our older daughter. Having your first, you don't have anything to compare it to. So when you're seeing like her eyes moving a lot, it's like, I don't know, like maybe that happens, unless you have spent a ton of time around a newborn day in and day out, you don't know. And when you don't have those things to compare to, I think so many kids in lots of situations get diagnosed later because the parents don't even realize. I think it's a couple things. They don't realize what they're seeing. They don't know, that there's an issue. But then I think there's a very real, and in a way, kind of what your ex-husband was doing, there's a very real way that people cope differently with things. And denial is a huge, huge area where people would rather be like, oh, they'll just grow out of it. Or this is not a real thing. Lots of kids do this. But have found, at least for our case, and a lot of different disabilities and special needs, the younger that they can get diagnosed, the better there's more opportunity for therapies and interventions and things like that while they're still young. And so I can only imagine as you have the second child, it's like you are on this like white on rice. Like I'm watching everything, I'm paying attention to everything. I'm going to see, if we're dealing with this, especially with the odds that you were given.
Oh, for sure. And then it, and then it hit me one day, like you said, Dr. Jardine is like, these are your odds. And I'm like, no way. So Marbury had a eye doctor appointment and to get her glasses. It was her first pair of glasses. She was like so excited. I was excited. And she would just walk outside and be like, wow. And like it made me cry. I didn't realize how deprived she was of not having the glasses and not being able to see clearly. And so when we went, I'm like, hey, can you just check out Marbury? Or sorry, Lily. And Like she just did not like her eyes dilated and everything, but there was nothing. I'm like, okay. And the doctor was like, or the ophthalmologist, he's like, you might want to get that checked. I'm like, I know what it is. I was like, it's fine. And he's like, what do you mean you know what it is? So I explained what Marbury's is, and he just starts crying. He's like, I'm so sorry. I was like, it's fine. I was like, I know nothing different. I was like, enough. And so like, God trusted me with this. It's fine. And you could just tell the ophthalmologist was still very distraught. And so then from there on out, we had like, if we rearranged any furniture, I had to walk Lily through the house and be like, hey, this is where this is at. This is where, explain the whole layout. And then once she knows the layout, my girls are really like memories. Like they can remember everything. And once they know of something and you're just like, oh, careful, there's this, after 2 or 3 times, they can move around freely and not run into anything. And Lily, even to this day, she'll be running, and it's so cute. She'll be running through the house and she thinks she's lightning fast, but she runs and her left foot is always in front and her right leg is like her running leg, but her left leg is in front tapping the floor to be aware of her surroundings so she's not running into a door or the counter or whatever. And there's sometimes where she's going so fast and she believes in herself, and I don't know, like she's just like going, and then all of a sudden she veers, and before I can, like, I hold my breath a lot because like if I say something, I'm keeping them in that bubble of not allowing them to be independent. So I just sit there and go and just like hold my breath. And then all of a sudden she's like starting to head towards a door frame or whatever, and she just like skirts real quick. I'm like, yeah, you're definitely playing with me today. You're not blind today. And that's like a joke within the family of like they're just pretending. But so we're just like whatever. And then oh yeah. And um then like even Lily will tell you, and she's loud, she is very loud and proud of it about it. I can't see. I have to use my cane. I use my fingers to read. And she's so loud and proud about it. And then she'll tell you all about her braille. And then my third child, John, he is our 25% that there's nothing wrong with him except that he has seizures. But like he's both near and farsighted, so he has like the Coke bottle glasses. Like they're like thick.
So, okay, so when you say he has seizures, is that part of this other stuff that they have? Is that a totally separate?
Totally separate thing. Like, and like funnily enough, like it's two totally different things. But his near and farsighted is part of the LCA, but that just comes with the, normal, nothing's wrong with them, 25%.
That's the thing that I know that people who are listening to this who either have a special needs child or are close to someone who does, and they understand what that entails, the physical, the emotional, the everything that goes into that. They're sitting there and their jaws just dropped going, "Are you kidding me?" She has 2 that already have sight issues, one that's blind, and now we're throwing seizures into the mix. Like, have we not had enough? Ha- uh, Seriously, I think that's very often we get caught in this. Okay, this is my trial, and either I've gone through it, so now I'm good. I'm not going to have any more trials, or this is the trial we're going to deal with forever, so I won't have any more trials. And I'm just like thinking, okay, so let's go through that. When did the seizures come about? What was that like?
So he was born February of 21. My ex-husband was gone on a trip, and I had all 3 kids by myself. Like my ex-husband left on a work trip 2 weeks after he was born. So I had 4, 2, and newborn.
Yeah.
Nope, that's a lie because Lily and John are 14 months apart. So like still all super,
Not even 2.
super,
Yeah.
yeah, super young babies. And I was blessed to have my bishop and his wife live across the street, where he would just come over. Him and his daughters would send their daughters over, and they'd knock on the door and be like, my dad wants your son. So I'd pack up a quick little bag and I would be like, here. And so, like, my body doesn't work, so like I can't breastfeed. So I'm just like, I packed them bottles and stuff, and he stayed with them about once a week, so I could just have a mental break of just focus on the girls, and I could get some sleep. But anyway, so he was gone, and it was end of April, beginning of May, and my mom and dad are like, just come home. Like, we want to see you and the kids, just come home. So I told my ex-husband, I'm like, hey, I'm going down to Arizona. He's like, well, since you're going to be down there, you need to see my parents too. And I'm like, whatever. So that's another story in of itself. But
Yeah.
he so I went down there and was with my family, and then I split up the time, so I would start on a good note with my family, be with his family, and then end on a good note with being with my family again. So we get down there, and it was day one of us getting down there, and um he I took him out of his car seat, and then they're like, oh, we want to show you Jeremiah's. And I'm like, okay, the store was just starting up and everything. Well, I put him back in his car seat, and we took him to, and we went over there, and I put him on the table, and all of a sudden I see him do this weird, like, his eyes fluttered really, really super fast, and he hunkered up like a roly poly. Like, he just curled into himself. And I'm like, it's the AC. Well, I kept watching. Was watching what they were doing and telling me all about the store and everything. And then I kept watching him, kept doing it out of the side of my eye. I'm like, something's not right. So I pulled out my phone and I recorded it, and I sent it to my dad because he was on shift on the fire department up here. And I'm like, hey, something's not right. I was like, what is this? And so he went and talked to a couple other fire guys that are more pediatric knowledgeable, and they're like, she needs to get to PCH now. And I was like, excuse me, what? And they're like, and so my dad called me, and he's kind of emotional, and the two other fire guys were there, and they're like, Tori, he's having seizures, you need to go now. And so I'm like, okay. So I'm like trying to arrange my kids and everything. Well, my ex-in-laws did not want to deal with my girls. That sounds so bad, but they didn't want to deal with my girls. So I left that morning at 7 o'clock in the morning. I jetted up to Sholo, dropped my girls off to my parents, and this whole drive, he's having seizures more and more. They're like within like a 5-minute time frame, he was having like 10 to 15. And
Wow.
so I hurry up and take him to Summit, this local hospital up here, and they're like, you have to go now. Like, he cannot. They're like, you either got to drive yourself or he's being flown. I'm like, I will drive down. So I don't get down there till 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. And then I'm sitting in the waiting room till 3 o'clock in the morning for them to have a room for me. And Summit called and said that they had a room for me already. So I'm in there. And it's during COVID because it's 21. I was by myself with a brand new baby, worrying about my daughters up here, and like my parents checked in on me about every 2 hours, and they're like, hey, what's the status? And I'm watching my son seizures. Like, he is having so many. At one point he had 72 in a 12-hour time frame.
Wow.
And he had to be hooked up to an EEG, and we were in a room where it has a camera up above. So, and every time a seizure would trigger, it would automatically turn on the light and start recording. So I didn't sleep for 2 days because of the constant light turning on and everything. And the only way he would truly sleep without triggering, and I'm so grateful for this, was so I could sleep, was if I held him. So I told the doctors, I'm like, can we just unhook him for a little bit? Because I need to sleep. So they did unhook him for a little bit. And then it was just specialist after specialist after specialist that was coming in and being like, this is what's going on. It started off as infantile seizures. And then he was put on Keppra, and there was another medication. Like, he was on 3 medications, and one of the medications alters your behavior. So he had to be put on B12 or B6 to help combat that behavioral change. And those behavioral changes are so real, even in a baby.
What were they? I have to ask, my curiosity. I have to ask, what were the behavioral changes? What did you see?
He was super irritable. You touched him, like, just to like pick him up, he would scream at you. he didn't want to take a bottle unless you held him like a certain way. And it was super weird. Like you could hold him one way, and then the next time he wanted to eat, he had to be like football. And then the next time he wanted to eat, he just wanted to be not be touched and just have like a pillow propped up and have him feed. Like you were not allowed to touch him. It was so bad.
It's that stuff's so interesting to me because I obviously love psychology, things like that, but psychiatry as well, understanding, which I don't, but understanding enough to know that, you know, chemicals and different reactions happen in different people to either medications or just their general genetic makeup. You know, it's when we talk about bipolar and 1 and 2 and things like that, schizophrenia, there's stuff that's going on already in a baby. He can't fake any of this. None of this is acting out. It's a genetic deal. It's a chemical, physical thing. I think that's fascinating for lack of a better word, because that sounds very heartless. But I do think it's interesting to know, because I think that so many adults are still trying to figure out, why do I do this? Why do I act like this? Why is my brain telling me to do that? You know, I think it's interesting that even as a baby, you could see that. So, okay, go ahead.
And then, so when we left PCH, he was put on steroids to help because he was having so many. We literally needed his brain to like churn off. And so, like, we got enough steroids to like it was manageable that his brain wouldn't trigger a seizure. And he was still active, cute little, handsome little baby, but like it was, he was a super skinny baby in May and June, and then it just got progressively worse where he just got fat. And at, let's see, May, June, July, August, September, October. Oh wait, May, June, July, August. At that point, it was August, and he was 6 months old. He was about 50 pounds because he was so fat. He was like a Michelin baby. Like it was so bad. And so all he did was eat, sleep, and poop. Like that was it, because the seizures, like the steroids were so strong that he just wanted to sleep and give his mind rest. And when he started coming off the steroids, like he never hit his milestones, which was hard for me because all I could hear in my brain was my ex-husband, I just want a normal baby.
I think that's another thing that I should have really talked about a little bit more in the beginning is, while at the same time, alongside dealing with all of this with your children, these new experiences that are not enjoyable, that are highly stressful, you are also going through a really unhealthy relationship, a really unhealthy marriage. And so you're not getting that support, which I think a lot of people who do have special needs kids rely a lot on their partner. There is like we both need a break at different times. We're there for each other. We can see what's going on. We can relate to each other. It just, the simple being able to talk and be like, this kind of sucks, right? Like this was a bad day, right? And then you kind of vent and then you move forward. You didn't have that. So you're doing this very much on your own already while still married.
Yes. And so, like, and that's all I could hear is, I just want a normal baby. And like, when we did find out I was pregnant with John, I instantly knew it was a boy. And, then he was born. He was, normal, and he was so excited. And then once he started having seizures, my ex-husband wanted nothing to do with him. He was like, done. And I would be like, hey, can you help me? Like, can you watch him? He's like, I have stuff to do. So like I stopped relying on him. And so that's when I started relying more on my bishop and his wife. And then like after we got off the steroids, we had moved to Idaho at this point. We were living in a camp trailer. We were 1 hour away from Spokane. And that's where his neurologist was at, my son's neurologist. And so whenever I had doctor's appointments, I try to have them be first thing in the morning, just so it wasn't too much time that my ex-husband had to miss out on work. And he was self-employed at this point, so it, really didn't matter. But to him, it did. And so, he was doing good. He was getting off the steroids significantly well with the easing off of it. And at this point, he was 9 months old. and he wasn't even crawling yet. And so I cried to my neurologist, and who also happened to be LDS at the and I'm just like, what do I do? And that man gave my son a blessing and um said, you're going to be fine. You're going to hit all your milestones, and you are going to have a successful life. And then after that blessing, he's like, Tori, he's like, I promise he will. It's just a matter of catching up now, because he was on the steroids for so long. It's just a matter of time for him to get caught up. Well, he did get caught up with crawling and walking. He did that. But it was the eating that was the biggest. And he wasn't talking at all either. You had to listen to how the grunts sounded to kind of know what he wanted. And then Lily and Marbury helped me out a lot in that aspect too, because they're like, oh, he wants this. So I would ask him, do you want this? And he would get like super excited and be like, all right, I will take what I can get. And but eating was a struggle because he didn't necessarily have those experiences of experiencing baby food and the oatmeal transition and all that other fun stuff. So for almost a year, I was doing up instant mashed potatoes with refried beans, or instant potatoes with something because all he could handle and tolerate was instant mashed potatoes. And I could try feeding him whatever I fixed us as a family for dinner, but he wanted nothing. And so we finally got him out of that once I moved here, once my ex-husband asked me for a divorce, and now he will eat anything. He's like Jory, garbage disposal.
Is he? Lunchbox. You got a lunchbox.
I do. And then now he's let's see, he's 4. About a year and a half ago, that's when he's truly started talking. And I'll forever be grateful for the firefighter that's on my dad's shift. And his son is autistic. And we were talking to him. I'm like, hey, how did you handle potty training? Because my son was not having it. He looked at the toilet, or you even offered the word toilet, and he would just lose it. And I'm like, oh my word. So we were talking to him one day, and all the kids were at the fire department hanging out, and John just instantly attached to Alex. That's his name. And Alex was they became best friends. And then the next day, like probably like a week later, all of a sudden he started like forming words. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I was like, is this what I think it is? Because I would always tell my parents, I just wish he would talk. And then he started talking and getting better. And I'm like, oh my gosh. My mom's like, you asked for this. Yeah, I didn't expect it to be like telling
said
me
the same thing.
Yep. Yeah. All the things of just like every little detail of their life. Like it's literally like a play-by-play. It's commentary of their life. And then probably about 6 months ago, that's when he started forming like actual sentences. And it's in my brain. I feel so bad. It's always like that episode of on Friends, when like Ross and Russ first meet together at the same time. And like everyone's trying to show Ross that Russ is Ross and Russ is like, and it always plays in my brain of it takes him like a year to get out a sentence, and Ross goes, yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I was like, this is how I feel every time my son talks. And I feel so bad because I want to already answer the question without him fully getting out the sentence or the question. I'm just like, patience, Tori. And so like, I'll just play that scene in my head and be like, yep, we're just. And then there's also the scene from Friends where like Joey and Chandler are in Richard's apartment, where there's like that sex tape that him and Monica made. And it's like, get there faster, Joey. And like, all the time, it's like, oh, bless his heart. But like, it's the taking the time to take that same patience that I have with my girls and apply it to my son. That is just, it's difficult because like I said, you always want to answer like this question or the statement of like, oh yeah, this is where it's at, without him fully getting out the sentence. And just having that patience is what patience is not a part of my vocabulary. I will tell you that right now. It is so not. And then once I had the girls, I had to really learn that it is a virtue and biting your tongue is how you get through the day.
Yeah. It's interesting now that you've kind of laid out and people can understand what your daily life kind of looks like. You can get an idea. It's interesting, and I want to, eh, I just couldn't help but see when you're talking about these different situations you were in, especially the high stress situations. You were given people. There were people that had been placed in your life, whether it was the bishop, the neighbor, or the doctor, these people that, like, I couldn't help but think, you're going through a really hard thing, and you don't have the physical support right there that you should have. That's actually another problem in your life, making your life harder. But it's like, I've talked about it in another episode about, Heavenly Father just saying, I'm going to give you a freebie. I'm going to give you a little help here, and a little tender mercy. And it's like, you have these people that just were there, that jumped in. It seems like that's kind of been a theme of where he's answered you, you know?
Oh, for sure. And even like bouncing back to what you said of like, or both of us have said of like Heavenly Father trusting me enough with these children. And there was at one point when John was just so cranky and he was so fat at this point that I had to prop him up on a pillow because I felt like if he laid down flat, he was going to stop breathing and die on me. So I was like, granted, that was my own paranoia because, like you said, I was dealing with high stress and doing it all by myself. That I literally that night, I'll never forget. I knelt down by my bed and I prayed. I'm like, why the hell? And I literally said it. I was like, why the hell did you allow me to be like, yeah, I got this? Why did you allow me to be an overachiever? Like, what did I do to you to be like, oh yeah, Tori's got this? And um and then a couple months later, I'm sitting in church bawling, and I had so many good people, and I'm still in close contact with this family, the Nelsons. They were my saving grace. Their daughter, Diana, was my saving grace. And um, Diana took John from me, and she's like, she's like, I want to be a mom just like you. And I was like, would I, like in my brain, I'm like coming to church with 3 kids by myself, like having blind kids, like all this stuff. And she's like, no, she's like, I want to be. I'm like, so I asked her, I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, she's like, you are so strong. She's like, and Heavenly Father trusted you so much that he allows you to have these special children that as soon as they, especially with the girls, like as soon as they die, they're going to be able to, Lily's going to be able to see you and know what you look like. And then it hit me, Lily's never seen what I've looked like. Like she has no idea what I look like. In that moment, that's when it hit me of like, oh my gosh, Lily does no idea. And she's like, I want to be like you. I want to be strong like you. I want to be everything that you are. I'm a mom like you one day. And that's when it hit me of like, I actively chose to be an overachiever. Heavenly Father presented me when we were in his little bishop's office and was like, here's your manila envelope. Look it over. And I accepted all of that. I willingly chose to have my daughters be the way that they are. I actively chose my son to have seizures and I thought I already had to run for my money, but he just added that on top of his seizures added on top of that. But like I truly would not trade them for the world. And I can't even begin to tell you that having them is the greatest thing that I've ever done, that I've ever accomplished in my life is having those 3 beautiful children. I can't imagine my life without them.
And we should add that there is someone else now that is supporting you.
And I love him. Yes. He is seriously the greatest. And he, I could go on for hours and that could be like a whole nother like conversation. I mean, I do tell you all the time how obsessed I am with him, but he truly is. He takes the time to. It's just like for Christmas, he was like, "Hey, what if I got them this, this, and this?" Great, but then I kind of had to reel him back in and be like, "Well, they can't see," and he's like, "Shoot." But then I feel so bad when I burst people's bubble like that. They're like, "Oh, can we do this for the girls?" And it's like,
We had this the other day. I have to say we have this the other day because I was talking about the elf. We are going to have the elf forever in our home. We joke that Jory will be 60, still looking for that elf every day in December. And I was mentioning that to Tori, and she's like, "Yeah, we never did that because they can't see it. They can't see the elf. So why would we do that?" And I was like, "Oh yeah,
I feel so bad. And I was like, them being blind is my saving grace because I don't have to deal with the elf mischief. And like, I'm just like,
there are pluses. There's
there
always
are.
pluses."
I mean, there's a silver lining. There's a fine. It's a fine line, but there's a silver lining. And but like I do feel bad bursting people's bubble of like, oh, we want to do this for the girls. It's like, okay, we can, but we got to do, these 10 extra steps to make it so that they can truly experience it. And a lot of people are like, deal. And they start working on it right then and there. As soon as I give the yes, we can, but they're like, don't say less, we got this. And like, and that's what I love about Michael. Like he has taken this on in full stride and has not only accepted them, but has really taken on doing things and wanting to have them to have experiences that like us visual people take for granted, that dumbing it down is an exciting process in of itself. And he does such an amazing job. Like I honestly could not ask for better. And even his daughter is amazing with all three of the kids as well. Like they're both heaven sent and God sent, and I truly do believe that. Like they're so I and it's like I told you the other day and I cried about it. I would go through everything all over again knowing that Michael and Ava are on the other side. I would totally go through it again just to have them, and all five of us, okay, that's a lie, 6 of us together. And like the people that are in my life that do accept my kids and take the time makes me see that the Lord's hand is in my life constantly, and that I am truly blessed to have the children that I have.
I can definitely see, and I think that a lot of we can see this a lot when people have extra challenges. I think from the outside looking in, it's easier for us to look at that person and be like, they're so strong. Like, of course they got that trial because they can handle it, because they have a strength that they might not even know themselves, because I'm sure every day it's like, really? How strong do I have to be? I'm done. Like, can I tap out? But you can't. You don't get to. But it's easier to see, I think, from the outside looking in. And that's why I like to tell people, I like to say, your kid is so lucky to have you for these reasons, not just, oh, you're a special person because you got this special kid. Why? What is it that I'm doing? That's because I think parents need to hear that. I think any parents need to hear that they are a good parent for specific reasons, but especially with these special needs children, because they do bring extra challenges and they require extra patience and extra thinking outside the box and thinking ahead and planning ahead. And it just, the stress never really ends. You don't really get to turn it off, even when your kids aren't with you. Sometimes that's even more stress, is when they're not with you, as I'm sure I know that you have dealt with. Um, and okay, so my final question that I always ask is, and I always ask it a little differently, but it's the same idea. If you were talking to a young woman, a mom who is heading down this road that you've been on, is just starting it, may not even know what's coming. Maybe she's just had her first child and she's just starting to see some things that are different. And she's worried. What would you tell her? What would you tell someone in your shoes way back then?
Children just don't change your life, they change your perspective. They give you a different perspective on life that you never thought was possible, and you never even remotely thought to look at it through their eyes. And living life through my children's eyes is the biggest blessing that I have.
That's beautiful. And it's really beautiful when you have a blind child, you know, when you really do have to experience life the way, like Lily experiences it. And you have to think, how is she experiencing this? Not how she's seeing this. How is she experiencing?
Oh yeah, and it's just like the other day I was talking to a friend of like she told me, she's like, it's you're so brave for loving or having your kids the way that they are. And I was like, it shouldn't be considered brave. Like, just because people are different, they shouldn't be loved any less. Like, it should be normal to love people differently and love people that with disabilities. Like, it shouldn't be brave. It should be normal.
I love that. I love it. Like I said, we spend a lot of time in that world, and the more that I am, people come to me and they say, I never thought that that's how she would experience it. I never thought that or they forget, they'll say, we should go do this. We should go. And I'm like, well, for us, are there going to be dogs? We can't be there. There's going to be dogs. We can't be there because Jory's afraid of dogs. And so it's like, oh yeah, and those are the things. Those are the things, like you said, Michael wants to buy them something or give them something. You're like, well, that's not going to happen. That's not going to work the way that you think it's going to work. It's so wonderful when they say, oh yeah, okay, let's do something different. Let's think different to include. I think more and more nowadays we're seeing so many more kids, with disabilities and experiencing life differently than we all experienced it. And I think it's making a lot of us parents have to step up.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, like, even me, I'm even sometimes that a-hole, even to my own kids. I could be like, oh, hey, Lily, look. And I'm like, feel like it's so bad because like I'm so in the mindset of treating everybody the same. And I'm like, oh, hey, Lily, look. And it's like, and she's like, at what? And in my brain, I'm like, oh my word. I was like, she just roasted me in her own little way. And I'm like, all right, feel. Uh, they keep me on my toes.
It's humor, and you have to have humor. And I think that's one reason that we've clicked so well, is because the humor is there. There's nobody gets offended. It's, you have to laugh at this because it's sometimes so absurd. Um, and humor's definitely been my MO.
Oh yeah, and it's like we've talked about Lily and Jory. They're gonna run a prison gang, and I'm gonna be out there prison walls being like, I know them.
We joke that Lily's going to be running it. Jory's going to be the bodyguard. She's going to be the enforcer.
Yes,
It's
for
going to
sure.
be fantastic. Anyway, thank you so much for coming on here and explaining this. I know that I talk about, and I've mentioned it in lots of different episodes, the reverse social media effect, where we get on social media and we see everything that everyone has, and we're less than, and we're not as good, or we're not as blessed, we're not as lucky, however we come away feeling. And then there's the reverse, where we see what someone else is living with and we're like, oh. In fact, I was just talking to my husband's aunt, who, Aunt Peggy, and she's like, I have listened to every episode and I think, I don't want that one. Like, Heavenly Father, I don't want that trial. I please, like, listen to me now. I don't want that trial. And I think that's the reverse effect is, oh, there are people who are living really, really hard lives that I just didn't know about. And yours is one of those for me. And I'm so grateful that you shared, because I think it's going to bring a lot of perspective for other people going through their own trials. And just to know they're not alone, just to know that none of us are alone. We all have our junk that we got to go through. But I love that when we share about it, it brings comfort. It brings, seeing the little tender mercies that helped you through yours. And we can find those. Everyone can find those in their own situation. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing.